see, we'll wait a few more minutes to see who else shows up. I was looking at trying to find the email I'd sent out for this meeting because I had on it the list of the agenda. But
I
simple.
I actually have it right here, but the attached file doesn't. I'll tell you what the agenda says.
Okay.
Announcement about Oakland redistricting.
Okay.
Short update on College Avenue Safeway Benefit Fund for bicycle safety improvements.
Okay.
An update on Rockridge Housing Study, if any. So this went out on Monday.
Okay, good. Okay, that's what I was remembering, but I wasn't sure whether I'd forgotten something.
Okay, so I'm gonna go see if my dinner's ready.
Okay.
The other thing for the board members who are here, before I do that, is I'm getting into a laryngitis thing, which I get. So Leonora, we're gonna need to have somebody open the Halloween parade because I might be hoarse by Sunday.
Oh my.
Okay.
I should be there, so I usually have a pretty good voice.
I'll be there too. Maybe Stu and I can do a duet.
Okay. Okay. I'll send something out, but because I'm doing these lab classes in the 2 rooms, my voice
just gets wiped out.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to put you on mute, but I'm just letting you know that I'll talk to people about this. But let me go.
Oh, oops, I forgot to switch back to me.
Oh, yes. You're Rockridge Community Planning Council.
Well, yeah, for the redistricting meeting.
Yeah.
Redistricting commission meeting.
I'm going to wait another couple of minutes. There should have been some more people. I thought there were some more people coming tonight.
Last I heard from Ken, I think he was planning to come.
Mm-hmm. I know I'm trying to think, there were a couple of people who said they had conflicts with something else. Well, at any rate, it may not be a very long meeting in any case.
Well, I can talk, excuse me. I seem to have cracked a rib, and so every time I cough, it hurts. So if I scream in pain, sorry. Anyway, I actually can give a quick update on the redistricting meeting. Did you stay for the whole thing, Stu?
I did not stay. I stayed for most of it. I left in the middle when they went on break, and then I came back and they were accepting comments. I don't know if you'd already talked or not. I think you hadn't. You must have already talked because I didn't hear you. And yes, I did. I think I did. Yes, I did. Yeah, because they said next person speaking is Rockridge Community Planning Council. Says,
well, I can put in the chat the report I did for the our ad hoc committee. Hang on.
Okay. So why don't I get started on that? Although I guess we may have another couple of people show up, but the first thing we wanted to do was to let people know, if they didn't already know about that, the Oakland Redistricting Commission meeting is hard at work on producing new maps for the Oakland Council districts. This was something, it was set up, I believe there was a ballot measure in 2014 that was approved by the voters that set up an Oakland Redistricting Committee. It's got, I think, 13 members. Is that right?
Yeah, 13.
Yeah, 13 members, and they're supposed to create council districts that meet the requirements of one person, one vote in terms of equal sized districts, and are also they have a specific requirement that they try and keep together what are called communities of interest, meaning groups of people, areas that have common interests, common concerns, basically that would like to be staying together. And at this point, they've got 2 major maps that they've produced. Actually, let me see. I don't know if I've got them Well, I'll just roughly say that there were two maps. One map is basically similar to the council districts as they now stand. The other map is starts from scratch and doesn't pay any attention to current council district boundaries. And so for the one that stays close to current council district boundaries, it leaves District 1 pretty much as it is. They've changed them. They've given them different. They've given them numbers rather than names because they may have to rearrange the numbers. But the one it's now map B keeps Rockridge essentially in a District 1 that is pretty close to what District 1 now is. The other one gets entirely new boundaries, has a hill district that goes all the way the whole length of Oakland, and includes half of Rockridge, as well as Piedmont Avenue. And the other half of Rockridge goes in a district that goes down to, I think, through Golden Gate and into West Oakland.
It goes quite a distance into West Oakland. It calls my portion of Rockridge Temescal, which was true 40 odd years ago, but hasn't been for a while. It's the community in West Oakland is really pretty upset about it because it takes this gigantic bite
It splits
out
West Oakland.
of most of the residential part of West Oakland, west of downtown. And then it has this little sort of strip that wanders along into downtown and near Lake Merritt.
There are lots of people who are upset with that. The two maps that they now have are called B and D, and there were lots of people who were upset with D. Although tonight they heard from a number of people who like D.
There are more people who
around Lake Merritt. Yeah,
there are more people who don't like it than like it. And what I would say about you weren't there, Stu. So the response of the commission to a lot of complaints about sticking the hills in just one district. The response to that, the response to some of the other people who were saying, hey, wait a minute, what was wrong with having districts that ran from the hills down to the bay or to, wherever. So what they've decided to do, I was going to post this in the chat, but it won't let me. So I'll just say, they decided to put on the agenda going forward a permanent item that the commissioners would be able to give instructions to the consultant on making adjustments to the maps as they receive more input. And they also are going to put some more time on the agenda for the commissioners to, as they put it, drill deeper into individual neighborhoods in the proposed maps. What they're trying to do is get more granular input. We're pretty granular in Rockridge, but they'd like more. The last suggestion, and I don't know if this is making it on the agenda, I was listening, but I couldn't quite understand what they were doing, was that the commission try to find out from more neighborhoods and more neighborhood groups about how people feel about their current council and school board districts. Because as the commissioner, and I've forgotten which one who proposed this, said, they really had no idea how people felt about current districts. Did they like them, dislike them? So they, in the commission's defense, thanks to the former guy, it took so long for the census data to get released that
they didn't get the census data until August of this year.
Right.
So they're starting off the whole thing, and they have to have the whole thing done by December.
Right. They're compressing a process that usually takes about a year.
Yeah. It's
4 months.
I mean, unfortunately, this is one of the problems with ballot measures is that the ballot measure said you got to have it done by December 31st of the X1 year. If it's 2020 to 2021, you have to by December 2021. And so normally you'd have the census data coming out maybe around May or April, and you'd have plenty of time. But with in between COVID and Trump, it didn't come out until August of this year. So it's a mess.
Do-
But the
Well-
other thing, and the reason why it's up, why we're bringing it up this time is because there has not been a lot of public involvement and public awareness that this is even happening, when it's going to make big differences in people's lives, because it means who's their council member and how are they represented on the council and who are the other people that they're all talking to the same council member. So it's a big deal.
If you want, I have the maps up. If you let me share my
Sure.
screen,
Okay, hold
I
on.
can
Let me-
show everyone.
Just a second. Let me.
Oh, and by the way, the maps are pretty bad. It's really hard to read them. They have sort of overlays of neighborhoods, but like I said, I live in Temescal again, according to the map. Okay, whatever.
Okay, so can I do it, Stu?
I'm just going to make you a I didn't, for some reason, it doesn't allow me to let people.
Under share screen,
Oh.
it's all, you have all, okay, so.
Oh, all participants.
So-
Okay, it should be.
I just did that. Okay,
Okay.
that's where you have to click it on the right and then, so let me, so
Yeah.
this is, I do a lot of this. So this is the, okay, so this is map B. So in the colors in the background, the orange is the original District 1. So it included the hills, that hills area and this part of the hills, and it went to about here. The new, this would be, okay, this is D. Okay, so
Just
so
going to say,
D,
it doesn't look right.
this is D. This is the D map that everyone's talking about. So this is, but you can see overlaid is the old council district. So what would happen is right in here, it's split. So this is College Avenue right here, and there's Broadway. So what would happen is it would split Rockridge kind of weirdly above north of the, so this is over here, 24. So you can see that. It's a little better if we blow it up. So this is Rockridge, right? So there's Broadway, there's College, and it would just kind of zigzag around to the west of Broadway, to the west of College. So this part would be in Council District A, this part would be in Council District D, and that includes Piedmont Avenue and the hills. So this is map D, and it's helpful to see the former one. This is map B, and I'll blow this up so it's this 270. So so there's this one, that's 300. So now they're the same size. So this is basically using the historic, so you can sort of see that A is pretty much the same. It adds a little here. It loses this part of the hills.
Yeah.
That would be included in the hills, which was Leonora was saying was a challenge, but it would include Piedmont Avenue, which is a lot more like us. And so it's pretty much, so it is different. This is, but it's closer.
Well,
versus
one of the
this.
things that they're saying is that they've had to change a number of the district boundaries because of increases in population.
Yeah.
So areas that have gotten more population, the district has to get smaller to have the same number of people, because if they leave it that size, all of a sudden the district is a lot bigger in terms of population than other districts. So they
Anyway,
Look at
have
map
to
D
shrink
though.
districts.
So if you look at map D.
I'll
on
put that
the-
back up again.
Yeah, put that one back up because.
This is map D, right?
So if you look at map D, it cuts off quite a bit of Rockridge.
Right.
It leaves the very lowest part of Lower Rockridge, which is the part closest to the freeway, and then the line goes up the middle of Broadway there, and then it adds this gigantic chunk of West Oakland.
Right there.
Yeah, and so it basically guts a lot of West Oakland, moving that into District A, and then it has West Oakland is
Oakland is split into 3 parts.
yeah, and it's wrapped around in this really weird looking district, and then there's a chunk of it that's in District B, which is, I mean, it's Oh dear. What can
The
I say?
the only people who like the map D is the people around Lake Merritt, because the whole of Lake Merritt is included in District B. Whereas in the older maps, you can see that there's a portion down at the southern end of Lake Merritt that's not in the same district as the rest of the lake. Actually, the lake is really split in half, actually, because I think that dark area is the lake. And so
Yes.
what you've got to see is that half of the lake is in one district and half of it in another.
Well, somebody asked, it may have been on one of the letters after they read the letters, but when reading the letters, somebody asked, why can't they just adjust the boundaries a little bit so that like business districts aren't being split, and it makes more sense because Glenview is actually in favor of map D, well, sort of in favor of map D. It has some challenges for them, but right now Glenview is split going straight up Park Boulevard. Half's in one district and half is in the other, and they are not happy about that.
Yeah.
It seems like that's contrary, that, you know, this new map seems very contrary to what the goals are that are stated in how to divide up
Yeah.
the areas.
Anyways, the point of this announcement is not to be spending 15 to 20 minutes talking about the redistricting. The point of this is just to let everyone who's on this meeting know about that the redistricting is going on, and that they should look on the city's website for the redistricting commission, because there's a lot of materials there, and there is the ability for people to comment on the maps that have been submitted so far, or if they want to make their own map. So and the main thing for people to do is really to let other people know this is going on, and it's pretty important. So
This will be going up on this will be going up on the RCPC website. There's an article about it coming out in the Rockridge News. They've added a lot of extra meetings. So if you go to Oakland and search on redistricting, it has all the information, all the maps, the community survey, yada, yada, yada. So this is kind of a call to action for everybody. So spread it far and wide, please.
Yeah. So the second item on the agenda is to talk a bit of an update on what's going on. We talked, I think it was either last meeting or the meeting before, we talked a bit about the benefit fund that came out of the settlement with Safeway over the College Avenue Safeway, and that was $400,000 to be used to provide, to essentially address problems that were created by the College Avenue Safeway project that had not been dealt with in the EIR. And after a fair amount of discussion over a number of years, we came up with a series of pedestrian and bicyclist safety improvements that would address problems that had been created by the increased traffic on some of the nearby residential streets, the so-called cut-through traffic from the Safeway, and also including Alcatraz. And we submitted this to Safeway, and Safeway promptly turned it down. But the settlement agreement said, provided that if they turned it down, we could bring, if we wanted to, we could bring the proposal to the Oakland planning director, and the Oakland planning director would adjudicate the dispute, would essentially serve as an arbitrator and decide whether the improvements should be approved or not. So we gave that to the planning director, I think it's now about 2.5 or 3 months ago, and he wasn't sure what to do about it because he wasn't even here when that whole when the settlement agreement was approved. So this was all absolutely news to him. And he spent some time basically asked the city attorney, what do I do with this? And at this point, we just heard back earlier this month that we got the person who was working on it for RCPC was able to get in touch with him and convince him that it was important that we get a response from him quickly. So we're hoping that in the next maybe couple of weeks, hopefully, we will hear back as to whether he, whether he's supposed to also get input from Safeway, but they haven't. We sent it off to him, and we also indicated to Safeway we're sending it off to him. They haven't, so far as I know, they haven't submitted anything. Maybe they haven't, they haven't told it, had the decency to let us know what they submitted. But at any rate, we're hoping that we will get a decision from him, and that decision will be favorable and will come in time, because the clock is running out. We have to get something, a decision on whether we can go ahead with this or not. If we don't have a decision to go ahead, the fund disappears in January.
So I mean, my feeling was that he was not sure he wanted to get involved, or that he had the legal authority for it.
Yeah, and that was, I guess, what he was discussing with the city attorney. And hopefully they've concluded that there's nothing in the city charter that says you can't do this.
But apparently, the last I had heard was that he was having, I guess the question was whether he would communicate, whether he would talk to us about it. Is that right, Leonora?
I believe so. So a little background on why he finally responded. The board directed me, I guess it was at the last meeting, to let Dan Kalb's office know, and then talk to some people in the mayor's office. So when I let Dan Kalb's office know, suddenly they must have checked in with Mr. Gilchrist, and he called our former board member who's filling in for us at the moment till we can get another transportation chair, and working on this, because the last communication was quite recent. I think it was last week.
So we still haven't heard from Gilchrist.
We haven't heard,
We have not heard directly from Gilchrist, no.
but it sounds like we should be hearing from him shortly.
Yes.
That was where we left it with Olga at that firestorm memorial, was that we were supposed to hear from him soon. So it doesn't sound like it's really changed much.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Well,
He did send an email to Matt.
yeah, he did. And Kara, who's replacing Olga in Dan Kalb's office, pinged him, and he responded. So,
Well, at any rate, we'll see what happens. I mean, it's kind of out of our hands at this point.
I mean, there's still the option to go to the mayor's office, but if he gets back to us in the next week or so,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the last thing on the agenda is an update on what's going on with the housing study. I haven't heard anything more from the modeling people. I was hoping that some of those folks would be on the meeting tonight, so we could get an update as to what the one thing they were still wanting to do is they wanted to apply their model to the shops at the Ridge Phase 2 area, to see what that said about what you could do there in terms of housing. Again, bearing in mind, of course, that the owner of that property has said that they are not at all interested in doing housing. So we'll see. But at any rate, what I wanted to bring to the committee tonight is that my feeling is at this point, this has gone on for 2.5 years, and I think it's time for us to bring it to a close. So my suggestion is that we ought to finalize what we've gotten done and publish it and get it peer reviewed by a few folks, and then assuming it comes out of the peer review okay, go ahead and hand it to the city, as well as publicize it to the community. So let me show you the kind of what I'm thinking we would want to have in the report that we're going to produce. Let me do the share screen here. And where is it? That's interesting. I thought it was here. There we go. No, I still don't see it. Let me try it again. Just a second here. There it is. Okay. Okay, so this is what I'm thinking of as the structure of the report, and I'm certainly open to comments or suggestions. But I'm thinking we would start with some background and history of Rockridge housing to sort of say how did we get where they are to where we are. Second chapter would be talking about what are we trying to do here, and of course what we're trying to do is ask, can we get more housing built in Rockridge, and secondarily, or perhaps equally important, how can we make housing more affordable in Rockridge? The third chapter would be sort of a summary of where do we stand right now in Rockridge, how many people are living here, what's the population density, what's the zoning, etc. What are current conditions? The fourth chapter would be talking about, and this was it appeared in the Rockridge News a couple of months ago, is a discussion of how does land cost affect Rockridge housing costs, and how does it affect the ability to build more housing here in Rockridge. The fifth chapter would be the two analyses of the feasibility of adding new housing. One would be the analysis that was done by Darren Smith, and the second would be analysis that's being done by the subcommittee from this committee that's been working on an alternative model for looking at housing feasibility. The sixth chapter would be basically sort of saying, okay, so these are all the conventional ways of building housing and building affordable housing. Are there other things we could be doing? Are there, essentially thinking outside the box, ways of doing things that don't fit in the conventional way of thinking about building new housing? So one of the main things I've been thinking of there is the idea of a what's called a land trust. There are what are called urban land trusts, and there's actually a group here in the East Bay that's called East Bay Urban Land Trust Group, and I was meaning to try and talk to them, but the point of a land trust is it's a way of putting housing in a permanent situation where it maintains its affordability. They're what used to be called limited equity co-ops. And the basic idea is you have a building or a group of buildings that are owned not by, well, they're owned by the cooperative, or in this case the land trust, and people buy into the cooperative, and the owners, that is to say those who are bought in, are kind of shareholders, and they collectively manage the building, and then when they leave, they sell their they sell it back to the land trust, and the land trust then sells it to another owner. But the point is that the selling of the land back and forth is done without any real profit. The only profit you get, what the person who bought in, when they get to, basically sell their share back to the land trust, they get their original price plus the cost of living. So they don't lose any money, but it doesn't appreciate. And what that means is that the housing doesn't appreciate. So that cost of that housing, other than the cost of living, stays constant over time. So it's a way of gaining permanent affordability without the intervention of government. You don't have to have something recorded which the city requires you to do, or some sort of thing with a particular time limit. Once it's established, it stays, and it's there. And there are other possibilities as well for this. Again, what we're thinking about here is what would be, other than the usual ways of either getting an affordable housing builder to build something and maintain it, or doing something where under the density bonus laws, where you build a certain amount of market rate and then you add to that a certain amount of affordable. So that's going to be the sixth chapter, and then the last chapter would be conclusions, which is to say what works and what doesn't. So that's what I'm thinking of as the outline. Do people have any thoughts on that? Does it sound okay? Does it sound bad? What do you think?
I think that really, for me to make a comment on it, I'd really like to see a draft.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we're gonna, I mean, I guess what's the purpose of this? Is it presenting to the city, presenting to the community?
It's first presenting to the community, and then if the community agrees with it, it's presenting to the city on behalf of the community.
I think the community is gonna wanna know what kind of housing period can be built, which I think
Yeah.
you have.
Yeah.
The affordable, and I think they would wanna know the different variations of what could be built other than a single family. Can you
Sure.
so that's the thing. I think to do the for the affordable, I think they would want to know about density bonus, because I don't think anybody really knows that in the big broad community. So
Yeah.
explaining density bonus laws and how you can get some of that is important. And then I think that, some outside of the box, I guess the question would be, saying that there's the affordability thing is good, but I think it's important to make it also, this is what all of the housing could be, and then a little section, a section that you're looking at of what could we do for getting, teachers, firefighters, other people back here.
Now,
Saying
one of the
we
things,
need to have
yeah,
affordable.
one other chapter I thought of, and I wasn't sure whether we should include it or not, is a chapter about the unhoused, and how do we deal with that?
I don't think that's gonna happen in Rockridge. I mean, just, having, my son knew some people who were living out of their car, and it's too expensive in Rockridge. The food prices were just too high. Everything is expensive. You need to go to a different area. Even the gas is higher in Rockridge than some areas. So you can't live unless you're living out of a tent underneath the freeway.
Which is what people are doing.
Yeah.
And the question that people have, that, and justifiably, is, well, what's going to happen to these people? And I don't think the answer is, well, we just push them out of Rockridge and tell them to go somewhere else. That's not a good answer. So we have to have a way of saying, this is what we see. And maybe the answer, as you say, may be that we can't house those people in Rockridge, but we have to figure out what we do with them. We can't just sort of leave them and say, well, that's not our problem. It is our problem.
Rockridge is very desirable, but it also can be considered a good example of how other neighborhoods can deal with issues and become desirable in themselves. Rockridge, I don't think that we're responsible to take anybody who wants to live in a neighborhood like ours, under any circumstance. I think that we're just I consider what we've done is really leadership, and that, and
well, I guess I have to differ with you a little bit, which is that if we're not going to become a ritzy, fancy, high-priced neighborhood of people that just anybody, the only people who live here are the people who can afford to pay $1.5 million, then we've got to figure out a way for other people to live here too.
it's 2.5 million now.
No, that's the average price is about $1.5 million for Rockridge. That's what Redfin says.
The current 4-bedroom houses are going over 2.
Oh, I'm sure they are, but that's
Yeah.
not the average.
Yeah. And no, I agree that we need to have a variety of rentals and, and different incomes in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
But I just don't, I don't think that we have to, accommodate everybody, because we
We
can't.
can't possibly accommodate everybody who wants to live in Rockridge. There's
Stuart,
lots of people who want to live here. It's a desirable neighborhood.
I don't think we should be, I mean, we got to keep this focused. And I think that keeping it focused on what kind of housing can go in that with in those two things, regular market rate and affordable is probably as far as we should go, because it's going to start getting diffuse. And we wanted to have a focus and a clear conclusions.
So it sounds like admittedly, we don't have a full quorum, so we can't make any formal decisions tonight. But it sounds like people are generally saying that don't put in the chapter on homelessness.
I think you want to, yeah, I think you just want to get, I mean, why don't you write up that without the unhoused and then see how it looks and see if it would fit in that you could add that.
Okay. Okay, I can remember back when we had that first town hall at the start of the housing, no, it was actually before that. We had a town hall on the unhoused, and I remember the person from the city's, I believe it was the city's housing department, saying that what's happening with people is they're dropping out of the bottom of the housing market. And that struck me as a statement about a problem, a big problem. And
Yeah,
and while admittedly, as you're saying, Rockridge can't solve that problem, but nevertheless, we need to have an understanding, and we need to be able to accept our part in that problem.
Yeah, we need to find ways to, keep the people, who don't make much money working here in the community, not having to, commute for an hour or two.
Yeah, I ran into this one guy who had a job and lived here in an apartment in Rockridge, and he eventually could no longer afford the apartment, even though he still had a job, and he was camping out at Lake Temescal. And
yeah. My son had friends at Oakland Tech who had that too, and they eventually did get housing, but it happened. I agree it happens, but that I think is a whole different level than affordable, which is where
it is, and that's why
so,
it could be in a separate chapter.
But we don't, I think we need to have a lot of more information on that, because I mean, we have those apartments over that used to be Clifton Hall, and formerly unhoused went in there, and that's, again, they had to get money for it,
and that may be the answer, is that we've got to look for outside sources of money if we're going to do something about that.
I don't think this is something we should be in, because I think we're just keep it the narrow focus, because that sounded like something where they had a windfall, they got money, federal money, and they were able to use it. We're not going to be able to find out all of the issues there, advocate that kind and propose solutions when we don't have any understanding.
We can't solve the problem, but we can at least identify what could be done to solve the problem. We can't do it, but we could talk about what could be done.
Well, you'd have to find people who are in that field, because I think, and I don't know that we want to keep going on and on this. Maybe we should just write
We're not going to solve this problem, but if we can make some progress with it, that'd be great.
Yeah. Well, let's see what, anyway, this will be going, I'm going to bring this, the proposal in terms of moving this forward. I'll bring that to the next board meeting. That's my idea.
I think, yeah, that sounds really good. And then as you're writing it, that might come right into it, or you might decide it's too much work, and you're just going to have to see. But
Okay, on the CCA project.
Yeah.
The Rockridge News had a nice little sketch in it by Michael Reardon. Is that from the developer, or is that from somebody else?
I haven't seen that. I guess that just come out.
In the last month.
In last month.
Yeah.
See that?
I think that was an artist conception.
Joe?
Although I'm not a LUC member, I am an UBA member, and that was our sort of wish list of buildings there. Instead of like steel and glass, office tower thing, we wanted to have something a little more romantic or craftsman. That's it. So no, it was not from the developer.
Oh, I remember. Okay, that was there was a drawing there of a 6 or 8 story buildings
Yeah, right.
and a very sort of a more, as you say, more craftsman style and very much the opposite of what the CCA developers had shown in terms of a
Right.
modern
The standard, 6-story box that we see.
yeah.
Yeah, the variety is the pattern of colors that they paint on the outside walls.
Yeah, but and again, so that the answer is that I don't think that that was not from the developer. That was, as you say, Joe, that was from Uber.
Okay.
But it's essentially a response to
Okay.
the developer's proposal.
Well, I found it encouraging to see that response.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe that's another thing we could suggest is people, maybe have a little kind of contest or something. Send in your thoughts about what you'd like how you'd like the Uber build, how you'd like the CCA buildings to look, and then we'll publish, say the 5 or 6 of the most interesting proposals.
And on the Ridge project, the developers were saying that they couldn't make just a 1-story retail work for that.
Well, they were saying you couldn't make retail work, period.
Right. And, I've been thinking about that and not, they want a lot of money per square foot for the retail to feel comfortable doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And, what's going to support that? But, and I don't know how to address the finances of it, but I think that, whatever buildings they put up are pretty much going to, they're big shells, with a decorated front, storefronts, like a mall. So that they're relatively simple. But what I thought would be really interesting is if that was a mall that had sustainable products only.
Hmm.
Like electric cars, appliances, systems for your house and so forth. Right now solar panels, anything that relates to sustainability, it's the people who understand, the engineering principles and all that are the ones that, don't really need that. But, so many people I know are just saying, just tell me, give me a choice of, things that are all okay, for sustainability. And, let me find, make it a center for sustainable products. I think that would be really, I think you get a tremendous interest in it.
It could be.
This is
I don't know.
this is the right area. You kind of expect that it should have already happened in Berkeley, but Berkeley isn't the only one that's interested.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, that's a thought.
Yeah. Well, that may be something to think about there. Now that poll is going to be going out this month, right? It's going to be there's going to be a link to it in the Rockridge News.
Of the survey, yes.
Yeah. So that's the next step in terms of RCPC's involvement there is to get the results of that survey and to see what the people in the neighborhood feel about what they would like to see on that site. Their preferences or non-preferences, as it were. And I think it did include, in addition to a number of specific categories of things that might be there, it also include tell us what you think.
Yeah, there's an open question.
Yeah. So there's your place to put that in there, Glenn. You just have to recruit a few more people to put that in too. Say, me too, I want that too.
Yeah. Okay.
But, all right, does anyone have any other items that they want to bring to the committee? Yes, Joe.
Just letting everyone know, they're going to have the CCNA holiday art fair, yay, this year, November
really?
20th, Saturday, from 11 till 4. I heard that from one of the PR people at CCNA. It might appear in the Rockridge News, but yeah, November 20th, Saturday, 11 to 4. 11 to 4.
November 20th. Wait, November 20th, that's,
It should be a Saturday.
yeah, it's the Saturday before Thanksgiving. Okay. All right. Where in the CCA is it going to be? Do you know?
Well, the campus is reopened. We thought it was
It has.
closed. Yeah, the campus is open. According to Taryn, who's a CCNA PR person, the campus is open to classes. So yes, indeed it is.
So they've reestablished the CCA campus is working?
Right.
Whoa.
That's a surprise to us at
Whoa.
UBA.
I
Yeah.
wondered, I thought I saw students coming from there, and I wondered if they were Oakland Tech or if they were CCA.
Yeah,
No,
I had the same question.
I've been wondering for a while whether maybe this whole deal of moving everything over to San Francisco with everything that's happened with COVID and all has fallen apart, or at least has been put on hold.
So where are the students living though? Because if they had
Well, you have to remember that most of them didn't still live on campus anyhow.
they had a fair number at Clifton Hall though.
They did, but that's not. It was maybe I think 100 students or something like that. They have far more than 100 students. But I hadn't heard that at all. That's fascinating. We'll have to, maybe I'll give a call to their PR person to ask what's going on, and we can maybe have a report on that next month. Yeah, I've heard nothing from the city about the progress on the EIR, but that's another thing to do. So maybe we'll try and flesh some of those things out for next month. See if we can get an update on what's actually happening, both in terms of the students and in terms of the project. That had kind of dropped off my radar screen. But
Yeah, they
okay,
look-
well,
they
thank
look-
you, Joe. That's very interesting information, both of those.
The students, yeah, and I was wondering because the students didn't look high school. They looked just that little bit older. Well, you know, I see 18, 19-year-olds all the time. Well, 19, 20-year-olds a lot,
Yeah.
like day in and day out. So these were,
Okay. Well, it would be wonderful if they'd bring it back. I have to say, even with all of these other ideas, I'd be much happier if they just had CCAs coming back in. That's my own personal opinion.
it brings a lot to the community.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't think we've got much of anything else to do, so why don't we say call it a day or a night?
Okay.
Thanks for showing up.
Thank you.
Do follow up on redistricting, everyone, please.
Yes, yeah, please spread the word. Okay, bye-bye.